As you know, I have not been at all involved in any game development until a year ago when I started my own company and just thought, all right, I try it, and the kicker was the Windows 8 store was announced by Microsoft, and I thought, well, that's a really good opportunity for me to do it. Before that, I worked on this app, which is kind of a mind mapping app, for 6 years, and all in all, I've been programming probably for 10. Almost exclusively C#, GDI+, and lately Windows Presentation Foundation, which is kind of the next generation of GDI+, and it's based on DirectX, but nothing, you don't go into any low-level details, so you just throw together some buttons and stuff like that and move them around. So yeah, I'll tell you a bit of a story first, how I got into game development. So starting my own game, as I said, the motivation of it was I saw that a real Windows 8 store will open. I mean, Windows had a marketplace forever. I had never known about it before I read up on it because it was hidden on Start Marketplace and it was full of rubbish, basically, And when Windows 8 was announced, they said, well, they will have an app store similar to what is on Apple. And I mean, as everyone knows, Windows is a little bit larger as the Mac OS, and the stories you heard about the gold rush on iOS, on the App Store and stuff like that, I thought, well, that's the one opportunity in my lifetime that something like that happens. I mean, specifically on Windows, because I was really a Windows developer. So, what did I write here? Maybe, oh, sorry. Well, I wrote it, I can't operate it, so it's edit. Maybe. Oh yeah, maybe it's the opportunity of a lifetime, because you can never trust what Microsoft says, but I thought, oh well, I'll try it anyway. This is basically the app that I was talking about before, so it's has a full kind of office design to it, and you can create these things, and we have that stuff. And so even though I'd never worked on games, I wrote the layout engine for that and had a little bit of polygon collision detection and stuff like that. So I think I did probably more than most app developers do in the low-end stuff. But never did the real game before. Alright, let's start it from here. So Windows 8 offers quite a variety of things for the developer. You can do your game in DirectX, C++, and C# XAML, which is kind of a new incarnation of what WPF was, and in HTML, JavaScript. And for me, that was interesting because I have never written a web application at all before. I always kept away from the website. I was totally on client, and I was really convinced that the client can offer you the most power. And that's what I mentioned before, when I looked at Impress.js, which is a presentation tool, I thought, wow, you can do much better performance than I can do in WPF presentation technique stuff, much easier on the web. I definitely missed how far it moved along. And the other thing is that Microsoft basically teached WPF, that's what I worked on 6 years ago, and for 6 years, and reinvented that completely. And basically that means if you want to release it on Windows 8 store, your app, you have to start from scratch, and half of the stuff is missing. And I said, well, I'm not doing that again. I use a safe option. Probably the best choice is DirectX C++ for game developers. Unfortunately, I'm a terrible C++ programmer. I mean, it's really true that they say there are two types of programmers who want to understand pointers and I don't. So I'm very happy in C# that I have memory management and all of that, and I don't have to deal with that. And JavaScript was really attractive. Well, initially it wasn't attractive because when I heard JavaScript, all I could hear is Java and script. And I thought Java means slow and script means unsophisticated. That was my whole, shoot it down kind of thing. But after a while I looked at it, and it's quite an amazing language and incredibly fast on the latest browsers. Well, I'll get into that a bit later. So when I decided on HTML JavaScript, I was like, okay, what do we do? And I knew I couldn't do it by myself. I talked to my brother, because I knew it because I worked on this mind mapping application. The Windows version was basically just me and another guy for 6 years, and it's jarring to be completely responsible for everything. So I don't know, I just didn't want to do it completely by myself. I knew it would probably be very emotionally taxing. So I asked my brother, and we were kind of, investigating, and thought, okay, Minecraft is really big, and Terraria and all of that, and then I just realized, nah, if you've never done games, it's it's a bit of a big step. Plus, in 2 years' time, there will be 100 clones anyway by the time. So we kind of tried to find something simple that we both liked as a concept and start from there. So yeah, start simple, grow more complex anyway. So our concept was to do a game dev tycoon. It's kind of funny because we're not game developers at this stage, but I really liked business simulation games. I think it's a German thing as well. Lots of German, Austrian play simulation games. It's really big there. And my favorite game probably was Team Hospital from back in the days. It was just fun and it's cool, and the isometric graphics and stuff like that. And I played Game Dev Story, which is on iPhone. I don't know if you know it. It's a little simulation game made by a Japanese company. And it's very interesting in that it combines business simulation with this quirky Japanese humor, and it's not very serious, and it's not very realistic in a way. So we liked it, and we thought, okay, we make our own that's a bit more to our liking. So that was the start of it. I'll show you the thing later on. Basically, a year later, we published Game Dev Tycoon in the Windows 8 store. It's you start out in the 80s in your garage, and you kind of you start making your games, and it's very much inspired by a lot of popular culture, and you have Little Warrior standing there, and you make it in games, and you can basically it's all pop-up based gameplay. You watch your guy type in, and then little bubbles will be created. And during the development process, you simply decide what's more important for your game. Is it the engine? Is it the gameplay? Is it the story quests? We kind of divided up game development into these stages. Later on, you can also expand and hire more staff and stuff like that. And you can manage your team, which makes it all a bit more complex. You can hire James E. Garmack and something like that. I know we all have this weird. Yeah. Not sure how people would react who are actually involved in that, but yeah, then you select and do the research, and it's basically just a social tycoon game, and at the end you can have a research lab and a hardware lab, and you can invent Grid, which is really just Steam, and do stuff like that. So yeah, we had a lot of fun, and I think I might just show you the game very briefly so that you can see it. I think that's probably the debug version actually, but yeah, I'm not sure where I am. Syntax error, I'm definitely somewhere else where I should be. Let's see. Alright, so this is in the third level, and it's based on touch, so you can drag around to go into your research and development labs, and there's little animations, so they're all just sprite sheets, very simple. And for example, here you could say. Okay, this one is already all done. Here's your hardware lab, and you could say, okay, I want to make my own console, for example. Here you have your little designs, and you give a name, and then you basically just use what you researched. And development of a game. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff to be implemented, like create a custom engine where you basically just have to use the technology, and it costs you a lot, and it increases your game and stuff like that. But starting out, you really start out like that. It's skip tutorial, you're in Game Dev Tycoon, you give your company a name, you can pick a character. We were super conscious, I think, about race and stuff like that. So I don't know. But then you are in this little garage, and then you can start developing a game, and you give the name. Let's say Paul. And you start out with a couple of topics you can research more later on. Sports, simulation, and then you have PC or the G64. Of course, we couldn't use any of the official names, so we had all these icons made as well, so that was a huge job to do that. But then you say, okay, is it text-based or 2D graphics? Well, I guess Pong is text-based.
So does it progress through time? So you start in the 80s and you actually get they become flat screen? Yeah, you get into the future slightly, and you can make your own thing. So then you see, it's all based on that you get design and technology points and bugs. So that's your character, and basically you can say, okay, for a simulation game, probably story isn't important, but the engine and gameplay, and that's kind of the thought behind it, that you have to think as a user what's more important for this type of game.
And anyway, I just show you this one game. Dialogues in Pong, probably not. That design, AI, yeah. Yeah, and you get research that you can use later on. And Pong is actually it's a little Easter egg, because later on this thing will play in the background that goes we try to hide like little details everywhere. So I think when it starts in the graphic, yeah, it's okay. But otherwise, you can't click on anything, or you can't do anything. So it's, in a way, it's very passive, but it's just about trying to get it to work. And once you're done, you click on finish, and you get experience for all these things, and you can also get bonuses that you use on your combinations. And if it's a great combo, like sports simulation is a great combo, and you can speed that up. Yeah, then you release it, and after a while, first reviews came in. Let's look. So, oh, it's a good game. Yeah, awesome. You can speed that up. So that's the whole game, and basically from here the process just becomes a little bit more complex, and technology comes a bit more. And yeah, I mean, this whole thing is written in HTML JavaScript. There's nothing else. It's just HTML JavaScript. And I think as a developer, I wouldn't have expected that when I would have seen it back in the days when I didn't know much about it. I mean, there's not much to it. Like, we don't have 3D or anything. It's all just 2.5D playing, and we have like little circles and stuff like that. But for example, this menu here is 3D. It has some animations that when you click, it kind of pops out and stuff like that. And it runs full screen on 30-inch screen as well. So we designed it for 2560 by 1440 maximum resolution, because that's what you have to do for Windows 8. And you can run it on the Surface as well, because all Windows 8 applications in the store, unless you do specifically for Intel-based, you can just run them here. So it's all based on touch. So that's kind of the thing, right? So that's what the end product was. Let's go back.
When you say it's all HTML5 and JavaScript, will it actually run in a browser?
Theoretically, yes. So
you haven't tried it?
We haven't tried it yet. I'll show you later that I have like a little example project where we use a lot of the same techniques, and running it on the browser was really just changing 5 lines of code or something like that. But it depends on how you develop it. We developed it by using as little as possible from Windows 8 APIs directly. Because I have enough experience with Windows that I know pizza software is not to play with. And with HTML you don't need to either, it's really good. Like, we used a lot of open source stuff. We'll get into that later. Yeah, so my starting point was never wrote a single web app, just did C#. And HTML5, who is actually developing web stuff? You said you do PHP, right?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, and okay, anyone else done any HTML JavaScript?
Just start with get over it now.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay, so for those who don't know, I mean, HTML is really, HTML5 is just a name for a bunch of technologies, but in effect it's HTML, which is where you define your content, text, but images, but you also have a canvas. And a canvas is just an immediate drawing layer. You can just draw anything. It's like what in GDI Plus was used to be on render override or whatever it was, where you draw a line from here to there and stuff like that. You can play video and audio, and CSS is, you can define the look, which I find really interesting, because there's this website called CSS and JavaScript, which basically shows you the power of what HTML and CSS combined can do. Let's have a look at this. So this thing, if you look at the website, inspect the elements, it's just a div soup, they call that, because it's just divs with little headings and text and stuff like that. So there is no visual information at all how this web page should look. And CSS, you can basically change this thing on the fly to something completely different. And this is still the same HTML markup, which I think is incredible. Coming from WinForms, that's unthinkable, of course. But even in WPF, you mix markup with look quite a lot. So our game, for example, our HTML isn't really that complex. It has a lot of scripts in there, but it's just in the debug version. Let's make it a bit smaller. Okay, but then it's just the game container as a div. Then we have game pause overlay that shows when you pause the game and stuff like that, but otherwise it's just canvases and a whole bunch of dynamic generated stuff. And you can inline some styles, like here I say, okay, I want to have 100% width and height full screen, but you don't have to, you usually use CSS. But what's also interesting with CSS is that you can do animations. Like you can say, okay, when I apply this style, I want to animate the change of properties. So for example, this element is purely done in HTML and CSS animations. There isn't really any code that we have to do. We just say, okay, our start point is 90 degrees flipped back, and then our end point is 100, 0 or whatever it was, to 3D transform kind of thing. And it's a few lines of code basically to do that. Or the 3D, it's very short, but you might notice a subtle 3D effect that tilts the window out and back when you open it. So when I click here, it kind of comes up. So this is just CSS done. I think I can show you that in code to just give you an idea what's kind of involved. Window show states. Yeah. So basically, we say, okay, this is Microsoft specific. So if you would go cross-platform, you would just need a different text here, but it works on either of them. So here we just say, rotate X 10 degrees is the starting point and 0 degrees is the end point, and we want to use a 0.2 seconds ease out animation. And it's as soon as you apply the style, it does that automatically. So it's really easy. CSS is really cool for UI animations because it's super easy to change them and to do that. Yeah, all right. Where was I? And then you have JavaScript, which has nothing to do with Java. It's a terrible name. And it is, it is a script in a way, but it's just-in-time compiled on modern browsers. So it's basically native code later on that runs in the background. And I've done some, we've created a mind mapping application like this one in HTML as well for the Windows 8 store. And the heat testing of the collision detection stuff, not heat testing, the collision detection stuff was actually faster in JavaScript than it was in C#. And I just couldn't believe it. Well, that's impossible.
I've looked at the performance a little bit. The gist is basically JavaScript. It depends if you're really, for some of the guys here are really hardcore game programmers who are used to getting down to almost the assembly level. Anyone who can do that can make native code much faster. The thing about JavaScript is, for just general code, it can actually do inline optimizations, basically, where if you're calling a function a whole bunch of times with a particular variable, it can go, oh, well, I'll just recompile that function with that variable in line, which you'd never do when you're writing the code in a whole bunch of versions. So I can do stuff like that on the fly. It can actually make stuff faster than native code that's written without insight into how it's running. So it's kind of like profile-guided optimization.
And I think JavaScript, I just had a whole bunch of misunderstandings about it and preconceived ideas that weren't true. Like I always thought that, for example, floating point operations are really slow. And you can read that online quite a lot that people say don't use floating point operation, but in reality it had no effect whatsoever. It was just as fast as C#. And like with this one, the code performance is never the problem. It's always the drawing. So we never had any problem with JavaScript code performance. The other thing is very flexible. I mean, it takes some getting used to. And I did a talk on Technology Brisbane that goes from JavaScript for C# developers, and some things you just have to learn because you get so frustrated otherwise. It's so unlike other languages in some ways, but once you get to that, it's really nice. Yeah, and then you have a whole bunch of other technologies that are also supported by browsers, like SVG, Scalable Vector Graphics. And these have some interesting features, like SVG can do text on a curve by itself, so you can just specify a curve, give some text, and it renders it. While here in WPF we have to write our own text renderer to do that, which is horribly complex if you want to support Chinese characters as well, which we do, and right to left languages. So it's not something that you would do enough usually. And then you have filters like you have blend modes and all that. It probably you know more about that because I have not used much except color metrics and Gaussian blur. It has support for light sources and stuff like that, and then finally, so this is SVG, is the added technology of HTML, CSS, then you have SVG if you want to. And you have WebGL, which is the 3D API that is available in the browser. And it's quite powerful. It has shader support. You can make proper games, basically. And the code will be JavaScript, of course, but that isn't really an issue. But the support is really limited, like IE doesn't have it, and Microsoft has said they have no plans to do it because of security concerns. Apparently, you know, you have to hook into OpenGL somehow, and I don't know, they're scared of some security things, that there's no plan there.
I think they're worried about killing DirectX, but they're actually...
There's Firefox, Chrome supports it out of the box, and Safari Opera does it too, but it's disabled by default, so I think, you know, for commercial games it's probably not that interesting. Having said that, it might be interesting if you do Android development, but it's not, as far as I understand, it's not very popular on mobile browsers, so I'm not sure how you go with tablets and phones.
Chrome for Android is about to start supporting WebGL. That's the only thing on Android so far.
In a couple of months, there's probably going to be a WebGL talk. So,
yeah. And I mean, if you just have doubts of what HTML can do and what WebGL can do, then you can just go to Chrome Experiments, which is kind of a repository of a whole bunch of what's happened here. Chrome Experiments, a whole bunch of you know, demos and stuff like that, and there is some amazing things happening here. And you can go through the tags, like most of them are tagged if it's WebGL, if it's not WebGL, like GPU packet system or stuff like that. So you know, I would love to do things like that in the browser, but that's all basically WebGL based. You can see, where is the tag? Nowhere. Yeah, but interestingly, the code is all JavaScript, and they have this JavaScript library called FreeJS, which does a lot of metrics transformations for you and stuff like that. Oh, I tried to run it before, it doesn't work. So anyway, Chrome Experiments is a good place to look at if you are interested in that. Okay, let's go back. So, and then you have, okay, so then you have JavaScript that powers everything. You only use JavaScript as the code base. And you use it with HTML, CSS, SVG, Canvas and stuff, and all of these things. And there are dozens and dozens of libraries. I think that's the real strong point of HTML. It's just born into this open source kind of attitude. So you find projects everywhere that the code is available. Like for Canvas, Canvas is an immediate drawing layer, so you have to draw a line and then you have to delete it again and you move it a pixel down and draw it again and stuff like that, you know. And there are hundreds of libraries out there that implement a display list so that you don't have to do that and you can invalidate things. Yeah, it's really interesting. I'll show you actually in code how to use some of that and what I use. But that's what side is. But I think, a good way is to judge it by its games, and that might not be so nice with HTML a lot, because, a lot of social games are HTML based. They used to be Flash, but now most of them are HTML, like built-up games, and anything you could do in Flash, basically, as long as it wasn't 3D, you can do. It was a bit cheeky here. Anything you played 30 years ago, you can do nowadays in HTML. But it isn't actually true. You can do many more things because you could do, I don't know, for example, a lot of artificial intelligence in the background, because the power of JavaScript, you can do really cool things that weren't possible 30 years ago. But from the graphic layer, that's kind of the thing that you have to think about. I mean, commercial opportunities are there as well. I mean, social games are often played to win, to not wait around, because otherwise you have to wait for 5 days before something happens. And I hate them, and one of the things that for us as a company, our motto currently is, less will, less social, but more game. I don't want these games, I want proper games. And with stores like the Windows 8 store, it's definitely possible. Like we launched our game in December, and we sold in the first month $50,000. probably, which sounds a lot. I mean, that barely covers our expenses, and now we have to kind of think about, okay, we need enough money to start another game, and at the moment we think of porting it to Android and to do something like that because the revenue isn't there at the moment. But I had no contact, or I had no contacts into the gaming industry. I never had anything, and we were completely unknown as a company. We started in July last year, and I think it's pretty good because it covers me. I mean, my brother can't really, both of us couldn't live of it yet, but we can start and grow out, so that's the plan. And as I said before, theoretically, I should be able to do that in a couple of weeks to have it run on Chrome, and then I think the Google Android version shouldn't take so long to get done either. Yeah, so by the way, feel free to interrupt me and kind of groveling on the most that might not be relevant. So demo time, I showed you already the game. I show you the NovaMind version as well, because you saw that now. This is the WPF version, and it's all in retained graphic mode. So we actually specify here is a text block, and the system takes care of everything. We don't draw anything ourselves. And the performance is a real challenge. I think I spent like 7 months to tune the performance just to get animations working nicely. And within a couple of months, we rewrote most of that in JavaScript. So that's using Canvas. So it's all custom drawn, and you can zoom in and you can do that. And it's actually redrawing every time I move it, basically. So the animations are quite alright. We have this thing which is based on SVG. Our idea is that you use it by holding it like that, and then you can use this to kind of scroll around. So it's a radial menu that you can drag to anything really. You can drag to the corners, and yeah, it's quite fast. This is on the ARM version, so this is the slowest you could possibly get. If I do it on the computer, it's much faster. So I was just shocked that I could do something in 4 months. It took me 6 years to do with a language that I've never written anything in my life, and it's so much faster and so much better. So that's kind of that was a good feeling, or not a good feeling, depending on how you look at it. Yeah. All right. So I show you how we implemented the game. Our website is Greenhub Games, if you want to look at that. For some reason it didn't load before. And I'm on Twitter as well, and yeah, I'm happy to, I think I had this kind of same idea that I want to connect with the indie development scene and the development scene in Brisbane, but I had to write my game first. We had this idea that we want to be in the Windows Store by December, and initially we said, yeah, easy, we finish in May, because we started December 2011, right? Then in May we realized, no, we want to make it bigger, and then we targeted kind of August, and in the end it was December. So it was a lot of work, and I kind of spent 7 days a week for 4 months and really try to get it done. So now I kind of want to connect with other people as well a little bit. But yeah, so what we used is called Create.js, and it's a bunch of JavaScript libraries. One of them is Either.js, which is a canvas abstraction that you can just draw shapes and move them somewhere, and it redraws automatically for you. And it also supports sprite sheet animations, which was big for us, because we didn't want to do it. I mean, it's silly to say that because it's really easy to implement sprite sheet animations, but everything that we didn't have to do ourselves, we were happy about. And then it has Tween.js, which is a tweening library. So it's just basically implementing the live tweening is something that everyone knows. Right?
It's freeware?
This is all freeware. So all open source, so you can change it as well if you want. So with tweening, you can just easily say, I want to animate those bunch of things from here to there, but I want to have a bounce effect, or I want to have a linear effect, or signing, or whatever. So these things are really easily done by that, and I'll show you that later as well. And then you have, Then you have Sound.js, which helps you to play sounds in HTML. HTML sounds are a bit odd because you basically inject an audio tag into the web page, and that you can tell it to play automatically. But that's really awkward in some ways. So with Sound.js, you can just do it from code. The reason why we went that, EaselJS isn't actually that great performance-wise, at least for certain things. Like for Novamind, we implemented our own canvas library because we saw that EaselJS, the matrix 2D transforms weren't really optimized, and we needed to do a lot of scaling and rotating and that kind of stuff. But it does, for most games, it's quite good. And the reason we went with it is that it has artificial support, hopefully not, official support from Adobe. And they basically say, well, if you want to transition from Flash to HTML, use CreateJS. And all their Flash animation tools can export to CreateJS, to EaselJS. So you get actual drawing stuff from your designers if you would use them. I think it's actually just Adobe .com CreateJS or something like that. Maybe there was something. No. But anyway, if you search for Adobe CreateJS, you will see that they have a bunch of things. So my plan was I will just show you the thing that I did at Technology Brisbane, where I basically implemented a CreateJS based game from scratch. But it was step by step. I don't think I have to do that here. I will just show you the snapshots of what it looks like. So yeah. I use Visual Studio 2012 Express, which is free, and it has an amazing usability, because that was one thing that I really wasn't a fan of, because I always used Visual Studio when I developed, right? And the idea of digging around in Chrome with developer tools or whatever, I wasn't really a fan of that. Plus I'm really big on debugging and trial and error, so maybe not the best programmer. But anyway, so editing, continue, and all of that stuff. And with Visual Studio, it feels like an application. It doesn't feel like a website. Like if I press a 5, it doesn't do anything. It's my function keys I enabled. If I press a 5, then it deploys it on the Windows 8 runtime and it runs. And this is a little game that you basically little nodes come up and you can click them. It's, I think I called it the colored circle tapper or something like that. It's just a demo project. But yeah, that's it. And if I want to debug it, then I can totally do that. I can do my JS. There's a default JS where it starts up. On app activated, that's all Vim.js specific, and you don't even have to care about it. I just have my own game manager where I call start, and that starts the drawing function basically. And why is my function key enabled? You just put a breakpoint there and you start it, and you're immediately here. You can inspect everything. You can't do edit continue, but you can change variables on the fly. You can do all this debugging stuff that you're just used to from C# basically, except for edit continue. So that's a big help up. And in the background, what Windows 8 does, it hosts in IE 10. So basically, if you write an app for Windows 8, it runs in IE 10. So it's all web browser stuff. Yeah. So the markup for this game, the game idea is similar to Fruit Ninja, except that you don't swipe, you tap them, because swiping is much harder to implement. So I did tapping. And you have a button where you can slow down time later on. And this is the HTML for it. It's just a game container where I have a canvas and I have it sized, fixed sized, simply to spare some code. So this is basically, if you just want the canvas game, this is basically all you have to deal with HTML. And then you can just be JavaScript. And if you hate HTML, for example. And then you just put script sources in. So you put default.js is the one that comes with Windows 8. It just makes sure that it starts up correctly. And then I downloaded this thing. Preload.js is from CreateJS as well. It helps you to load images before you use them, because in the web app you have to do that. Then you have sound, tween, and then my own stuff. So I just have everything game manager at the start, and then I have my entities. So to show you that, I mean, this is 60 lines or 70 lines of code. And if you look at stuff like that and you think, what the heck is going on, just leave it. It's just some oddities of JavaScript. Yeah, I have some links on my blog, I think, which explain all the basics. Yeah, so let's put that away. So basically you just get to the document, which is a global object that gives you the DOM. And then you say get element by ID canvas, which is the ID that I specified here. So now I have this object and I can use it. And then I create a stage from Create.js. And basically Create.js has this stage object that wraps a canvas and it provides you a display list. So if I want to, for example, draw something on it, then I would say shape equals new Create.js, and you get IntelliSense for some things as well in JavaScript, which is really cool. Create a new shape, and from here I can say I get the graphics object, and this graphic object is very similar to GDI plus drawing. You can just say, well, draw a circle from, I don't know what the thing is here actually. And it's just a close path, and then basically you can say the stage.addChild, I add my shape, and probably to see something I would need to put a field style on, so I would say begin field, and you could say red, for example. No, I don't actually, I haven't written that in ages, but yeah, so here is the circle. That's all you do to create something. And you can add images, you can add videos in that. Yeah, but basically, if you want to create your own shapes, you just bunch them up like this. And then to animate it, you can use tween.js, which is Create.js.tween. You say get a tween from a shape, for example, and then you animate something. You can say, okay, oops, okay, tween equals this. Tween.to, and you can say, okay, I want the X property animated to 200 and Y to 500, and the duration is 2 seconds, and ease function is a Create.js ease, I think, is a bounce in out or something to just have some crazy thing happening. And if you run that, then hopefully it should do exactly what I said. So now it's bouncing around like crazy. And that's, that's kind of the development experience if you want to do simple animations. So it's really short, precise, and it's nice. And of course you have to do, you can do much more if you want to. You can override it. And the really cool thing with HTML is as well, you can mix and match. You can use Canvas if you want to immediate drawing stuff, but you can overlay that with CSS, HTML elements, for example, and then overlay that again with a Canvas. In our game, for example, we have 3 layers. We have, let's get rid of that. We have a layer that is just the background, which is this thing here. Then we have the layer that is the Canvas level background. Then we have a level where the character is animated and all the points come up. Then we have a level with the status bar here. And then we have a level that is the HTML user interface here and all the rest of the HTML that is blended on top. And it's really simple to do that. I think in proper game development you often use scale form, I think, or something like that for user interface. Is that correct? Or?
That's a Flash user interface library that uses for games.
Yeah.
Well, it's a company actually, so they do
yeah.
That's their main one.
Is that often used, or is that kind of
I worked for one company that was using it.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the most popular UI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is mainly just because there aren't really any UI libraries apart from that.
Because our thinking when we made the game is we knew we had a lot of user interface, and writing user interface in, I don't know, low-level Canvas, for example, is horrible because you have to create your own button, you have to create your own animations for every single thing. So by using HTML, it's sort of like, I guess, scale form, where you have a really a platform that is made for that kind of stuff, and you can just overlay it, which is what we used to.
Can I actually just because you were talking about the Visual Studio stuff, I just might just shoot a question at you. Because you're doing all the Adobe stuff, have you had a look at, I can't remember what it's called, there's an Adobe JavaScript IDE they're working on.
Okay.
And I think they've released the first version.
Oh, brackets?
I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. But it's a little bit immature, but for what it is, it's really good.
Right, I was going to say, because I saw a lot of what he was doing.
Doesn't have any debugging or JSS.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, I haven't really done anything with Flash either or Adobe otherwise. But this, for example, this comes with like memory analysis if you want, which is quite nice. And you can remote debug on the Surface or Windows 8 tablet, which is awesome with debugging and everything. You know? So this one, I could go out and take a snapshot. Oh, no, let's stop it. But it has a performance profiler and a memory analysis built in, and it's all of the part of the free version. And I was really surprised. We don't need anything else that we would need to pay Microsoft for. The whole game is really with free stuff.
Is this when you're using the Visual Studio? Is it actually tied to Windows 8, or can you just develop a normal web application, client-side web application?
No, with this with Visual Studio 2012, you develop on Windows 8 app. Yeah, so. But with this one, for example, I'll show you the end product that I did with the Brisbane. So basically I implemented a thing where I have the normal game loop, but then I have a little factor so I can slow down gameplay and all animations and stuff like that, because I showed them that. And then, you know, I implemented that if you click on the red one, there's a bomb animation that goes off and stuff like that. So with the full project, if I run that, and I have some scores coming up that are HTML, so I'll show you how that looks first. So you can click and slow down and everything. My bombs that are normal speed, so I have the difference of slow down stuff and normal stuff. And if I click that, I get the points that are calculated, and it adds up here. So that was kind of showing different options, because this is an HTML button, this is HTML, this is Create.js, this is HTML animation that comes on top, because it's much easier to do that with text. And the bomb is a sprite sheet animation done with Create.js, and the sound, of course. So for example, for this one, oh yeah, before, why I wanted to show you that is because in this last version I did the browser version of it, and it's basically it's the same app. I mean, it isn't black because the default style in Windows 8 is black, but you know, otherwise it works the same. I think I have the sound turned down. So yeah, should have a look. So if I take this one, and then I take this one, because I know I didn't change anything else. So yeah, so I just removed the Microsoft Vim.js things, and that's it. Oh, and yeah, for some reason I had different. I had a dot here instead of just slash, which is probably my fault in the first place, and Visual Studio is too relaxed in that. But yeah, that was it. And then I just pointed the, I hooked out the default JS which comes from Visual Studio, and just called my game manager start, and it runs on Chrome. So yeah, so before I was saying it comes with memory profiler, it comes with performance profiler, which is at the moment highly used in our game because we try to get the full version to run. And you can do images fairly easily by using just PNG images that are loaded into JSON, which is it's just a format to specify frames. So there's a tool from Create.js website where you can just drag in a flash animation, and it creates you the PNG images and that. And then in the project itself, which one is it? It's that one. We have that here, and JS animations. Yeah, I just copy that in and say explosion sprite is this, and then in my entity I have like my game visual that is the little circle that comes up. You know, I have the bomb here, and then I have somewhere explode. Yeah, so basically I can just say give me a new animation from this sprite. I use a scale of 0.3, offset, add, when it's finished remove it again, play that, and then I use my sound, .play sound. This is the volume, so at 0.4 volume. And you know, here you just load the sounds. And I mean, this is just to to give you an idea of how it looks like a game like that. You know? Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have any specific questions on any of that, or how that specific example works? Because I know it's not very exciting. I think with this one, I don't actually have any. Yeah, I don't have any animations in CSS. It's just a position. So that's how CSS looks if you want to do something. But for example, the score point that comes out when you click has a little text shadow around it, and the shadow is very powerful. Like you can specify multiple kind of layers of shadows. So you could do like an isometric look on it if you want. Yeah. So to give you an idea how the proper my game works, it kind of grew, so I'm sorry that it's a bit messy, but basically I just have a whole bunch of GS files, like all the platforms, for example, are just JSONs where you can see when does it come out, how much is this sold stuff. And, I show you our images here, because they're pretty cool. All this gaming. The Master Lee or something like that.
Who did the artwork for your game?
I hired someone he's from the Ukraine, and like I use Odesk, which is like a freelance thing where you can just make a job application, a job post. And we found this guy, he's amazing. Like he did our logo as well, which is very nice if you look at it in 3D, in video. And then we asked him to do that, and he did all of them. And I mean, it cost us a fair chunk of money. I think it's $6,000 a lot because they're super detailed in some ways, and also we needed to make sure it looks different from the original. So we were, like, oh, okay, now this is too similar. We need to change this and that. And, yeah, and the artwork itself, our level design, is a bit crazy in that the third office, for example, is this massive PNG, which is designed for 2560 by 1440 free screens next to it, so you can scroll like that. So we have that in the background, which I don't know, it takes a lot of memory as well on the GPU, but we didn't really design any we don't have these things. They're just images, and then we overlay sprite sheet animations. So here we have the keyboard and desk because we have to render the characters in front and behind and stuff like that, but they never run around, so that makes it a lot easier. And to give you an idea about our animations, I'll show you the Pong animations because that's probably more interesting. With the animations we kind of had to think about download size, so we developed this idea that instead of saving the whole animation, we divide it up. And then also, we have a base image, so in this case it's just the shirt, the turquoise shirt kind of thing as a base image. And then the animation just gives you the difference. So it's much smaller than the full version. So we combine those two, we have the base and then we draw the rest on top. That's a lot more drawing operations, so it's even more impressive that it runs so well. But where's the Pong animation? So yeah, the Pong animation looks a bit odd. Like this is the base. And then here are all the differences that we just draw on top, and it's really small in download size.
How do you generate the differences?
We wrote a little C# app that does that. Took us a couple of weeks, I think, to figure out how we want to do it. But in the end, it's really simple. I mean, I don't know if you're just ridiculously silly and no one does it because it's just stupid, or if it's actually a good idea. Because the thing is that we designed this for 60 frames per second. So initially we had character animations with 60 frames per second, where a sprite sheet, right, where someone raises a hand, it's like 5 megabytes. And then you want different character variations. So we dropped down to 30 frames, and we did that we have all these parts separate. So we have a head separate, and we have the shirt separate. So if you have your guy sitting there, then if I start something, create an engine, so it takes long, it's easier. Then we start to work and type and drinking from the mug and stuff like that, so these are all animations. And the shirts are, in this case I always have different ones, but it's these bits and pieces that we stuck together. Which I found out, because I was naive, I found out that the reason why we don't see many 2D isometric games is that character animations are a pain, and that's why everyone does it in 3D. Well, I learned it the hard way, so that's why no one runs around either, because we figured, okay, if we want to do that, then we need crazy amounts of spreadsheets, and so we'll never be able to do that. But good news is that no one complained. You know, it's I think if you're used to this kind of game, you think, okay, no one ever walks around, it's a bit silly. But the game really is focused on gameplay, not so much on the graphic aspect.
Well, it's a game dev studio, no one gets out of big anyway.
Yeah.
There's work to be done.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of an in-joke, I guess. And if you can send someone on vacation and you just simply just fade in the background. That's what happens. You need boost and they work faster. Yeah.
Can you make them do crunch?
Sorry?
Can you make them do crunch time?
No, but they're very...
We get more red.
Very nice.
More coffee, guys.
They drink coffee.
Or pizza.
Yeah, and I mean, you get it on the store, and you install it. I think it's a 90 megabyte game or something like that. I can't remember. We're in the top page somewhere, place 12 or something. So if someone tells you that it's a gold rush on Windows 8 Store, they lie. But on the other hand, you know, it's $7.99. It's not a cheap game for a downloadable game, and we had, as I said, $16,000 worth of purchases. The thing is, if you publish on Windows 8 Store, you can just define the countries, and you can do it in over 200 countries. So that's what we did. And yeah, it looks like that. I already own it, and I was naughty and rated it myself at 5. So I'm sorry about that, but. There are other people who, yeah, I mean, the response has been really good. We're really lucky, I think. And, you know, you can specify your screenshots, and, yeah, the download is 96.4 megabytes, so it's not too bad.
How, if you don't mind me asking, how is the drop-off in, like, because one of the things with the stores is sometimes they're really high and they drop off really sharply.
Yeah, or massive. I mean, the thing is, we had a light version in the preview store, so we were one of only 32 Australian apps that were in the preview store. And on the first day, we sold 470 copies, which we thought, oh wow, you know, this is sustainable if that's there. But now we're between 30 and 60 a day, approximately. So yeah, I mean, there are not that many. But I mean, in a way, there are, but there are lots of rubbish apps. If you go on games. We were number 2 for a while, not sorted by revenue, but sorted by noteworthy, whatever that means in the Windows Store. And I think there are over 3,887. Oh, we are number 1. Cool. You know, and there are things like Angry Birds, of course, and Jetpack Joyride and stuff like that. Yeah.
Did you know any marketing? Like, what was the marketing?
Yeah, the marketing consists out of us developing the light version and having a newsletter sign up at the end when you finish the game. And we got around 600 people, I think, in the newsletter or something like that. So I think that's why we had.
You just distributed a free light version.
Yeah, it's still there. It's just the first 3 years of the game, I think. It's a bit older as well, I think. No, it's not in the top 3 anymore, but yeah, because in the preview version you couldn't charge money. And our idea was we wanted to be finished, but we weren't, so we just did a light version that was just a demo, basically.
How did you work out your price to try and optimize that?
Yeah, that was scary. Initially, I was always thinking about $4.50, simply because the game that is similar to ours, which is Game of Story on iPhone, was around $4, $5 or something. And ours is much more complex, so it's a bit fair to have it more. But then we thought, well, you can always make it cheaper, but it's a bit hard to charge more. So we looked around, and you know, to be honest, I would be really depressed if we would have sold it less, because we would have nowhere near the situation we paid back the expenses for the graphic designers. Well, now I can say, well, at least we made back the money that we actually spent directly on graphic artists. And very little comment about price. Like, lots of people say, super, you know, would definitely pay. Some guy sent us $20 by PayPal for the game and stuff like that. So I think it's better to charge more initially. I mean, I certainly think if you make a $1 game, you're just ruining yourself if you don't have like a super premium model where heaps of people pay some coins or something, but we didn't want that.
It's a hard thing, is years ago, we worked in a small game and the publisher charged full $15 for it. And I thought that was way too much. They had a weekend sale which was half price, and they sold as many copies in the weekend as the previous 3 months combined.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's an interesting question. I mean, we're kind of planning or investigating the opportunity to port it to Steam. Because, I mean, technically it shouldn't be such an issue. We just need a Chromium wrapper. You know, Chrome is open source anyway, so you can just wrap it in your own thing and have like a web server, a small one. But Steam seems to be made for games to go like $9 upwards. You know, it's like that's the price you pay. So I'm not sure if we make it more bigger, better, or something like that, or if we try at the same price point.
If you check it, actually, there's I'm trying to remember what it's called. There's a package that's basically designed for wrapping web apps and turning them into iPhone and Android games. Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
We're looking at Tide SDK. Which,
no, it's. I'll try and think of it. Sorry, but it's perfect for what you want.
Okay.
PhoneGap, that's it.
PhoneGap.
Yeah, if you haven't seen PhoneGap, check it out. It's exactly what you need, I think, because I suspect you can also even run it on Windows and stuff with PhoneGap.
Okay, well, I'm not sure if it runs on Windows, but I will have a look at it. The issue we have is that lots of these, like, I'm not sure about the iPad if it will work there, because, you know, IE 10 performance is crazy good. It's almost faster as Chrome, which says something, and I think mobile browsers, I'm not sure how they handle the HTML game. So in a way, we will find out, and I mean, that's our next step, so, you know, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm sure you will hear about my frustrations about whatever we try to do. Yeah.
One option, because you've written everything in JavaScript, is possibly just embed the JavaScript engine. So basically you'd be using, kind of like Node.js does, just embed the V8 JavaScript engine. And just because you're putting everything through easel or whatever, if you're rendering, you can possibly write a backend that goes straight to OpenGL or something.
Yeah, the thing with our game is that it's really a mix and match, as I said before, you know, because if we need to do the HTML ourselves, then it's a massive task. I might actually go to after the demo time. I mean, I can look at the code a bit more later on, but I'll give you kind of the gist of that thing.
How much does Overmind cost?
Overmind costs 49 for the Express, 159 I think for the Pro, and 249 for the Platinum version, which includes that presenter. So it's definitely a premium priced Office product kind of thing. So I'm a bit over time. I think this is my recommendation, kind of on HTML.
Plenty of time.
Yeah. All right. So you know, plain HTML and CSS. I mean, CSS is a thing that I love now, but I swear, and it's not exaggerated in some ways, I spent 4 hours trying to stack 2 buttons underneath each other. 4 hours. WPF is a button here, fill it, and
I've had this horrible experience with CSS layout as well. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel? Does it get better with experience?
Well, it depends what you want to do. I mean, I think if I go into my search history, the most searched for terms would be how to center div. You know, it seems in every situation it's slightly different, and this is just horrible. But certain things are super easy. Like with animations, I usually use. Do I have? Favorites here somewhere. Let's see. Wedding, yeah, getting there sometime. IE 10 hands-on labs. CSS3. Why do I never find this thing? Alright, I should really post that somewhere. It's basically from Microsoft, the website where you have an online editor for CSS3 transformations, and it's so super easy because they not only generate it for IE 10, but you get the whole CSS for Chrome, for Safari, WebKit-based browsers and stuff like that. And then you just add, you know, the animation by say 5 seconds, ease out, for example, and it's all. So that's how I did most of them. And the thing is with Visual Studio, you get also Blend, which is the design surface if you want. And this one is interesting as well because let's create a new project like that.
Use the Chrome CSS debugger. The what? The Chrome CSS debugger.
You mean just the Chrome development tools? Yeah. Yeah, love it.
So in here you could just create rules. Like you don't have to write CSS, but you can just say, okay, I want this thing to have a specific layout. Like I want to display it on an absolute position, 100 pixel top, 150 here, and then you can say, okay, I want a border with this color. Or let's do a background. It's much more fun because with the backgrounds you can say, I want a gradient. And you get a full editor where you can do complex gradients, for example. And why doesn't that? Yes. I mean, it's a separate download. I think it's in the same SDK.
I think it just definitely does now because they've made it free and discontinued it. It's the same way for it.
I'm not sure yet now, but anyway, so you can do that. And the cool thing is, I mean, our game is hopeless because it's quite complex. But you can run your app and then pause it in the middle and click on a dynamically generated HTML piece and change the styles on it. It's just really cool. Like I could try it probably on my on this game if I open that. Open project. Full game. So usually it runs actually in here already. Yeah, it runs. So then I can turn on interactive mode. Let's turn off. Anyway, so you can click on things. I mean, this is just a canvas, but if there are elements that are dynamically created, you can click on that and change the style, and you can copy it out. That's how I did most of the design in our game as far as user interface design goes. I mean, one thing that I really like about Metro is that they are all about simplicity. So I think our game is unusual in that, this is not usually how a game looks. You usually have like a fancy border around and some texture in the background and a glossy button or whatever, for simulation games. Here it's just a single color, and I mean, this is a bit more fancy, but otherwise all our game is really simple in the style. And all of that is done just in CSS and most English languages thrown together. And yeah, we didn't have any problem with it. And things like this thing is a slider, and it's touch enabled, and we bought it for $60 on some script site because it's JavaScript. You can find 100,000 different UI pieces that you can just buy, and it's super performant and it's great, And it's took a couple of days out of the thing as well because I mean, if you want that stuff, then it takes some time to get that right. So. All of that. So should really have a continue button. Yeah, so HTML CSS is alright once you get over that CSS thing. Well, I don't know, I've never read a book about CSS, maybe I should have. But it takes a while to get to the point where you're comfortable. And it's great for animated user interface, for any user interface stuff, and HTML is good for text. And one disadvantage for Canvas is text is slow to render. And the problem when you render text to a bitmap is anyway that you don't get subpixel rendering, like subpositioning and clear type, so it doesn't look as good on screen, it doesn't look as sharp. So whenever you have text, you should either use SVG or HTML by itself. So SVG is good if you don't have many elements, and if you need specific features like shapes, or if you do a drawing app, then it's probably SVG mostly. If you don't need too many. And some of the radial menu, for example, is in SVG, and we did it in I think 1 week prototype, and it's great. It works quite nicely. Do I have no one here as well? Yes. So this is the Windows 8 app, and that's that. And this is all SVG, and we used SVG. I mean, it's silly, but we used SVG because there's a slight curve in the text here. It would be really complex to do that. And we use a shadow here as well. And yeah, the shapes are just easy to define in SVG. So it's all animated with JavaScript in the background. see if that full screen.
When you're animating elements of SVG, is it pretty much the same as animating elements of HTML? Using jQuery or something like that?
I think so. In this specific case, that's with my teammate, and I haven't actually done much in SVG. But as far as I understand, the same APIs are concerned. And there are just heaps of frameworks that you can use to do so. So Canvas is good for custom drawings where you have many elements. Like the whole mind map stuff is created in Canvas, even though we have text as well. So if you only have a little text, it's sometimes alright. If you need full control, pixel perfect drawings, then Canvas is great because cross-browser it just looks exactly the same. With CSS, you can't really count that it is pixel perfect. So with UI it doesn't matter, but if you need pixel perfect, then it's probably better if you go with Canvas. And use your libraries and create your own. Things to consider is, do you need heat testing or mouse interaction? I mean, that's a good thing that a lot of those libraries provide these things, even though they're not part of the actual technology. What transforms do you need? Some of the Matrix 2D implementations are horrible, so we have to do our own one. Do you need to cache and do you need to zoom in and out? Because sometimes, if you only have a few elements, zooming is really taxing on the GPU. But if you have SVG, it's just built in because it's scalable anyway. So that's kind of thing. And test and validate performance characteristics. I mean, it's probably everyone does that. We really didn't do it because we didn't know what we want to do. And you can mix and match. That's, I think, the number one thing that I like about it, but also the number one thing when you start out a project that slows you down, because at some stage you just have to decide, okay, this I will try in Canvas, and if I run into problems, I might take some bits out into HTML. I mean, you can implement a whole game in HTML. I think I saw Doom, the original one, done in HTML, which is just incredible, but probably not what you want to do. Yeah, and without WebGL, you don't have any shaders, you don't have any blend modes, but Adobe is working on a standard, which is really cool because I really miss specifically the color dodge effect, because you can do some really cool glowing effects with that. And with sound support, you have to be really careful, because with sound support, you can play pre-recorded sounds, yes, we just have MP3s to replay. Although if you do a web app, then you probably have OGG as the format of MP3, because MP3 can't be played in every browser. And you can play a handful of sounds, like maybe 12 at the time, but you can only roughly control. You can say start, but you don't have a guarantee that it will start in the next 10 milliseconds or something like that. So if you have a game that really relies on precise control, then HTML is not a good thing. You can't generate sounds yourself, so I think there are some hack libraries that create a dynamically created wave thing that streams into the whatever, but it's not something that is easy to do. And you can't precisely control when you do things. Yeah, and with WebGL, I really can't talk. I don't have any experience with it. It looks really powerful what you can do, but I think the support is quite lacking at this stage. So that's what I prepared, but I'm happy to talk about any code bits or whatever you're interested in or answer any questions.
I'd be interested to know how you actually go through with the Windows 8 install submission.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work?
All right, I'll show you. Come on.
So the thing you submit is actually just a bunch of HTML. You don't have any kind of binary wrapper or anything like that.
You create a package. You basically in here you say store create app package, and then create a zip container with the HTML stuff in there, and then you upload it. So this is a game that I never made. But basically, you go through this process. You have an app name. You have selling details, which is specifying if it's free, if it's a trial, what price tier is it? Because you can be up to $999.99. But the lowest, which is interesting, is 1.49. So you can't create $1 apps. You can't create the 99-cent apps on the thing, which I think is great. Then you have all the markets. So with markets is interesting because basically you are legally the publisher. So you really need to concern yourself with legal stuff. Like we don't publish in New Zealand, in Brazil, in South Africa, in Korea because they have mandatory rating systems, and you know, we can't go through the rating thing for our stuff, so we just don't publish it. Then you say when you release it, you pick a category, that kind of stuff, and there are a whole bunch of other things like age ratings where you say, okay, my game is suitable for 12 and up. You give it a description, and it runs through a technical process that you can do yourself as well. Like there's a tester locally. There are things like you can't take more than 5 seconds to start up, or you can't take more than 2 seconds to save your game state when the app is closed, which is really a challenge in some ways. Especially for Novamind, because we want to generate a screenshot, but we can't do that in 2 seconds necessarily, so we do it in the background. And then you send it off, and Microsoft will... The technical test they do is exactly the same technical test that you do on your machine, so it should never fail really, if you are careful. But they do the content compliance test, which means they go through all of it and see if there's anything inappropriate, if any of the links don't work, and stuff like that. And it's between 5 and 20 days. And really, I mean, we released on the 11th of December, I think, and then we had a whole bunch of bug fixes, and they were in within 24 hours, which is super impressive, because in the Mac store, I think they shut it down on Christmas anyway, so you have to wait for a month or something.
How easy is that bug fix process from you making a change to it appearing?
Yeah, you just re-upload, and they retest it, and then it's live, essentially. You get download statistics, so here you can see we had 157 downloads on the 31st. You're always a few days behind. You have your ratings, finance summary, and the purchases. What really surprised me, and I don't know too much about the gaming industry, is that we have over 30% conversion rate of people who tried, which I think is fantastic. Like, I would have expected maybe 10% at high, you know. But yeah, it's really good. That's the average of the simulation games, so we are by far better than the average simulation game on the store. I think it's just not much happening. And you do get, like in your quality, you can go through the ratings, of course, which is always fun to look at the lowest rating and see why people hate you. But you do get error reports directly from Microsoft, which is basically a stack trace that you can use, and you can get dumps for most often used stolen on my machine, temp. I think I have temp 2 too, but I'm very good at that. Come on, what is it called? Oh, whatever. It's just a stack trace to tell you, okay, at this line, your JavaScript threw an exception. So that's nice. And you have application hangs, which I think are all system specific. We have no, JavaScript could not cause any system things. Yeah. You pay, I think it's $99 for a year to have access as a developer. For a company, it's $130 to be into the App Store. So I think it pays off to do your app first, and then to sign up and publish it.
Is that as many apps as you want?
Yeah. And the cool thing with Microsoft really is that, well, first of all, you have 30% cut. So from the $7.99, 30% goes to Microsoft. But as soon as we make $25,000, it falls down to 20%, which is a huge difference for us, of course. But you can also use your own payment provider if you want, so Microsoft doesn't get a cent, no problem. So if you want to implement that, that's fine with them, which is really cool. Of course, that's a lot of work as well, but if you work for a company, that's really interesting that you can do that.
So if you do that, does that circumvent all of those tests and performance requirements? That's still...
No, yeah, they're still there. Yeah. The technical stuff, usually it's not such a problem because they don't really count, like the 5-second startup is not until you can use the app. It's more like until the splash screen is gone. And if you want to have a second one that kind of shows you some progress, that's fine too.
Did you get through the submission process on the first go?
No. What was it? It was the most often cause for failure, but I forgot it now. It was just some technicality, I think. Oh yeah, that's right. If you make an application, then you have this manifest where you have to say capabilities. And you say, okay, this needs documents, this needs internet as a client, and whatever, you know. And we had internet as a client, but we didn't provide a privacy policy, which causes it to fail automatically because you have to provide a privacy policy if you have access to the internet. Which is fair enough, you know. And, we even had one, we just forgot to put it in the bloody settings page, so it's alright.
So I sort of asked this already, but I didn't ask the question very well. So when you put your app on the store, it's just a bunch of JavaScript and HTML inside of a zip file.
Yeah.
There's no actual binary launcher program.
I'll show you what it actually looks like on the actual.
It's the same for iOS as well. It's just a zip file really. Called an IPA. Like you can actually go into it, you can see all
The Android
files.
Android APKs are also zip files. You can just rename them to zip and open them in a zip program.
Right, but that's compiled Objective-C, right?
I'm not sure I use C++ for myself.
So for our app, it's on the C program files, you have a hidden Windows apps folder which is protected by some way, but you can easily circumvent that. And here are all the packages. And basically this name is ours. So here you have all the images the same as we have them in the source code, and you have the GS files the same, except that we do minify them and we did a little bit of obfuscation, and we ask you not to, you know, disrespect intellectual property, which some people do, but it's really easy to hack computer safe games, unfortunately. But it's basically this. I mean, it's for what it is. Our game is surprisingly complex. I think we wrote 30,000 lines of code for it. So you know, but that's just deployed like this. So
is it packaging encryption option?
Right.
No.
It's very strange.
Yeah, it is.
It's from Microsoft.
It's definitely still a sore point with HTML. On the other hand, I think, you know, for little games it probably doesn't matter as much either way. I mean, I don't know. We had one guy when the light version was out that just cracked it and then wrote to our support why a feature didn't work that wasn't even available in the light version. And we were like, you know that you can't do that. And he said, well, I live in France. I can do that by legal rights. For study purposes. I was like, well, that's interesting, but I asked you not to do it. And they said, well, I'm sorry, I'll give you $20 on PayPal. I said, no, it's all right. It was really, really odd conversation. So some people just do it, you know. Yeah.
So if you wanted to do, like, say, a phone home sort of thing, you know, to like have some idea when people are running the game or
stats.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
We're using Localytics, which is it's specifically made for apps, and
that's all just JavaScript again.
This is for a whole bunch of things. It's for iOS, Kindle Fire, whatever, Android, Windows 8 apps, C++, and basically it gives us we can see how many sessions we have. It's a bit similar to websites. And we could see, for example, what we were interested in is, you know, with this game it was really hard to balance it, to kind of try to figure out how well people play it. And we can look at, you can tag your own events in game. So I can look, for example, you know, how often go people bankrupt. And I see it per day, for example, in the game, which we wanted to make it a bit challenging. But also how many purchased, and that's an interesting statistic because it's very little. Most people buy outright in the store apparently, so they don't buy it first, which is kind of odd. I'm not sure, you know. And the thing is, I mean, this is really good because the dashboard of Windows 8 is super buggy. Often we just say 0 downloads for a week or something, and I look at Localytics and think, well, we had all these new users, and then after a week it corrects itself and it's up to date again. But Localytics is good because it's free, completely free to use. So you just throw in, I'll show you the code which we use. We have this abstraction, which is analytics. You give it an ID, and then you say init open upload, and then we just have this tag event method where you give it a name and whatever data you want to log with it, and it goes automatically to the web server when they restart the game.
How do Localytics make their money then? Nothing's ever free.
Yeah, they have, of course, a paid version and a premium version for doing marketing and in-app commerce and things like that, but it's enough for what we need.
Actually, you mentioned your privacy policy and then the stuff about publishing in certain countries with grading schemes. Did you lawyer up to get that sorted out? Like, how did you handle all that?
Well, by being scared, I guess. Like
did you actually get a lawyer to sort that stuff out for you, or did you like sort of just find your own stuff and do it yourself?
Yeah, I did research myself. Like, I think from our project, we were scared of two things. First of all, intellectual property rights. We were scared that Nintendo would sue us because we used something that looks like theirs, and you know, that was a big concern and cost a lot of energy to kind of figure out what we can and can't do. And as far as that goes, you just have to, Microsoft gives you a list of countries already where they say it's mandatory. And you know, I just investigated, okay, is it really, is the cost? And then we said, all right, we don't worry about it now, we will worry about it later. Like last week I noticed that New Zealand is no longer on the list, so I looked and I couldn't actually find any fact that it is mandatory rating system, so we might publish it in New Zealand next time. And
so you got that list from Microsoft, you didn't get that from Microsoft?
Yeah, we got that from Microsoft. And as far as privacy policy, I mean, they have links where they explain things very well. You just have to, like, if you, I have the website closed, but in each of the steps where you say selling details, you have a learn more button, and then there's a description. And sometimes it just says, you know, be careful of that and that, and you have to research yourself. But they're generally pretty good to tell you.
I found a privacy policy generator on the internet, which was quite good. I think you probably still want to have it checked out by a lawyer, but it's, it sounded pretty
well,
cool.
I always figure it depends on what's the likelihood you're actually going to, you know, anyone's going to really read the damn thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at Technology Brisbane, I don't know if you've seen it, but there was a Kay from IT Law, a Brisbane company who does IT law, and she said basically never copy and generate your privacy policy because they're useless. And I plan to contact her soon because that's what we did as well. Like we have terms of services and privacy policy. And now we want to have a forum, and I think you need to say, you know, any ideas you submit are ours and stuff like that, so that no one can kind of sue you for stuff that you use their ideas in the next game. But that's the whole point of having a player discussion forum, to kind of get ideas what people want. So it's definitely interesting running the business side of things, especially if you haven't had any prior experience with the industry.
Are you worried about people stealing your game?
Not worried in a way, because, like, I mean, I think it's easy to crack, and you know, basically the first time you have it online, you will get already notification that some crack engine lists that they have a crack, but it's not true. Like, they just catch people searching for it. With Novamind, it was interesting. We had that 6 years on the market, and then we translated it to Chinese, and the first day we had it on the market, it was cracked. The very first day we had the Chinese version of it, was a Chinese crack on it. It was amazing. So I guess, you know, in some countries I am a bit careful. Like, I don't really know how I want to go about the Chinese market because I would like to approach it. But I know that from experience there is a lot more piracy than in other bits.
Have you investigated getting a foreign publisher, a Chinese publisher, to do it for you?
Yeah, I'm looking into that.
Some friends have done that. They self-publish like you, and then recently they got some overseas publishers, and it seems to be working for them in some way.
Cool, yeah. Some interesting bits is that we were approached by Toshiba soon after we released the game, and they said they basically, when you have a device, and when you say device, you are in the store like this, right? You click on the store, and Microsoft moderates the contents of the highlights. So let's go back out. So you have the spotlight, and then you have games, and if you have a Toshiba laptop, there will be a section Toshiba recommends, and there are a whole bunch of apps that are directly on the front page. And basically, Toshiba sells those slots. So you can, I don't know, I think they asked for $15,000 for 6 months to have that. And we didn't do it because, you know, it's ridiculous because we don't know. And now I wouldn't recommend it either because the download numbers of Windows 8 are nowhere near that. But
if it was worth it, they'd do it on a percentage. The fact that they want an upfront fee sounds like...
Yeah, they have both actually. They have, you pay for the privilege and then they get 30%.
So on top of it, it's not being set up, right?
Yeah, but it's pre-installed, I think. And there's a whole bunch of different layers. Like, you can have it pre-installed, you can have it just link. You can have the recommendation system in a rotation-based or fixed for 6 months. And I don't know. Anyway, I mean they didn't send us an NDA, so I think I can mention that because it was just an email saying we want to do that. But this Microsoft decides when to feature you, and last week we were featured in Australia, which was really cool. But interestingly, they featured only the light version, and I tried to find out why, and they said, well, it needs to run on ARM as well, that is featured there. So I don't think I believe that. Surely they would feature apps that are not just on ARM, you know? But I don't know. As usual, if you're featured, then you have like 8 times as many downloads. So I think if you're really lucky to get it there. But it's much nicer, I think, than the iPhone store at least. You know, it's very cool to go through and see the images. Yeah. So I mean, I think to summarize it, we really thought that the Windows 8 store would be the super opportunity. In hindsight, it wasn't. But on the other hand, I think we did reasonably okay for someone that has no connections and no marketing budget. We didn't spend a cent on marketing. And the other thing is that with the technology choices that Windows offers, you don't have to lock yourself down. Like you can write this game, I'm sure, too, with using all the Windows JavaScript specific things, and then you probably take a year to rewrite it for other browsers. But we specifically designed it that way. And the thing is, there's like monogame, and you know they can write DirectX-based C# games that run cross-platform, and they run fine on Windows 8. There's a strategy game called Armed, and that's monogame, and it runs on everything. So I think right now, Microsoft is really keen to get games in, so it's still a good time to kind of submit. But yeah, it's good to keep the technology choice so that you can release it on other platforms.
So you had say you had an application you want to write for your work, right? Just for the people at the office, or go out in the field or something, do something. It seems there's only one way to get that apart from enterprise, and that's to put it on the store.
Yeah,
put it on the store for free and have like a code that your own employees have to.
Yeah, you could do that, but you can also side load it. It's something that the Windows Store supports, but not the Mac Store. Is that basically, as a company, you can get a side loading licenses on your client, and then you have your own repository of apps, and they can just download it from there, and it's private. So, but what I've heard is that the side loading license is quite expensive, so I'm not sure. Also with Windows 8, these apps are completely separate. You can't interact with any of the system. Like even you can read files if you ask the user to, but you couldn't interact with your other desktop applications. So I think you really need to look into if that app makes sense. And I think for tablets and stuff like that, it would be good, you know, to have some touch-based apps maybe.
You can run an operating system that lets you run your own code for free instead of paying somebody to run your own code. It's just mad that they want to charge you to put your own apps on your own device. Yeah.
With Novamind, we made it actually free, and then we have our own app store, mini app store that's in there where you can buy extensions. So you can definitely play around. Like we have this, you know, pay $15 and get everything in the future as well, or you can unlock little things like Skydives worth $3. So we tried that to kind of monetize our app. But I should mention I no longer work for Novamind, so it's just.
I'm pretty sure it's not mandatory to go through their app store, though.
I believe it is for RT. Somebody might be able to correct me, but
I know that we
regular Windows 8
talked to Microsoft and about selling a product, and we were told that we don't have to go through the store.
Well, if you want to be a Windows 8 Metro app, which is, I mean, Metro they don't say that, but Windows 8 UI app like these, then you either sideload, which means you're through a company, and then you don't need the store, or you go through the store. There's no way to install it as a user, in a way.
Can you just test it on your device and then just use that in-house on everyone else?
Yes, if you have a development license, which you can get for free basically with Visual Studio, then you can just run your app. That's how the guy cracked our game, because he just, you know, just made it.
You said it was $100, or is that just for store access?
That's just for store access.
Oh, okay.
The other one is free.
If they install a copy of Visual Studio Express, then they can run your development copy?
Well, not so easily. They would need to fake some things to get it running. Because essentially, you can then run debug apps. Yeah. So, and you know, rumor has it there are heaps of cracks already that unlocks the complete Windows 8 store, where you just say, okay, I've purchased this, and it simulates it in the background. But I'm sure Microsoft will do something about it. But I'm not too worried about it. I think, all right, as far as the download numbers and the purchase rate is quite good, and you know, probably more to focus on.
So what's your next game?
Yeah, I would love to jump into it, the next game, although I'm kind of inspired by Prison Architect at the moment. I don't know, have you ever heard about it? It's made by the Introversion guys, you know, the British guys who made Blink. Maybe you've heard about that. They're like indie devs, and they have this two-dimensional prison simulation game. And I've never thought that 2D, real 2D, not as isometric, works for a simulation game, but it's awesome. So I kind of think about it in that direction, because it's much easier graphic-wise. Now that I learned that, you know, complex isometric games are quite quite expensive to create. So I think it will be inspired by something like that, technology-wise. But I think I will look into monogame next, not HTML. I'm not entirely sure yet. Not that HTML is not good, but yeah.
So you're going to look into what instead?
Monogame?
It's basically XNA on cross-platform mobile, I think.
It's the open source version of XNA, isn't it?
Yeah, and XNA is dead. Like Microsoft doesn't support it at all on Windows 8 anymore. And rumor has it there is a new version in the making that is completely different again. Oh, that's not the right one. Anyway, Monogame is the name. And,
I think Bastion was done with Monogame.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Do you think there's a life ahead for Monogame, even after XNA's dead?
Yeah, I think so. It looks really cool.
Does it actually use the XNA libraries in Monogame, or has it got its own API? Because I thought Mono is basically the open source version of .NET, but I didn't think it used the XNA libs, like API.
No, as far as I understand, they just simulate it based on OpenGL or something. Like, you know, you just use the same methods to program it, but it isn't based on it. Because it runs on Linux and all these things, and you can deploy on Android. It's just a convenience of C# and a managed layer of DirectX if you want, or OpenGL in that case. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think, I mean, if you're a real developer and you can play write C++, then it's much easier with unlimited.
Yeah, I use Marmalade for all my cross-platform stuff, and I just write C++ on top of that.
Yeah.
Cool. So what's the name of it?
Marmalade?
Marmalade, okay.
Yeah. It's there's a trial version, but I'm on a indie license which is about $150 a year, and that's iOS and Android. And then there's different tiers. You can get Windows Phone, BlackBerry, and then desktop platform. And Samsung TVs, apparently. Interesting.
Maybe they're just embedding Android in their new sets as well.
Do any of you have any apps somewhere in app stores or companies? Because I'm really interested in other experiences. I don't really know.
James gave a talk a few months ago for what's it called? Train Defense. Yeah.
He was supposed to be here,
yeah.
Was it iOS?
iOS game, yeah, he put on that.
he was planning on doing
I published a couple of wallpapers on Android, but nothing major yet.
Sorry?
I published a couple of wallpapers on Android, so but nothing major yet. I'm planning on doing more. But
Commercial or?
Yeah, commercial. So I've been through the process of this, so I know the end of the process, if that's what you mean.
What did you say about the Android marketplace? Do you think a game like ours, like price point? Because I think they don't have that many much expensive games.
Yeah, it doesn't. It varies. Yeah, look, honestly, because I haven't put a game out yet. I can't really comment on the market response. James is actually probably actually. Have you met John Pasfield?
No.
I think he's coming on next week or something. Somebody said
Next month.
Next
He
month.
hasn't done much to do with Android though, it's done a bit of iOS.
Yeah, but because he's running the fund at River City Labs and stuff. He talks to and knows so many people in the local scene that he gets a lot of feedback on how, like, he knows guys that he talks to the guys at Defiant. He probably talks to the guys at Actually, if you get to meet some of these guys, like Fun Harper, define to the downhill skier one.
They published it, but like 2 guys made it.
Oh, they're right. A lot of these guys are often usually will talk to you and are happy to, if you want to buy them a cup of coffee, they'll sit down and give you a gist.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I hope to connect a little bit more because I know there are a lot of game developers in Brisbane. Last year was just
There's another one called Big Dev Meetup, which is once a month. It's at the Manabar. It's a similar kind of thing. There's lots of talks going there.
Yeah, I signed up for that.
There's IDGA on Facebook, the International Game Developers Association, for the Queensland chapter or Brisbane chapter, whatever it's called. And there's also the indie developers in Brisbane. I can't remember the official name, but there's a group on Facebook for that.
Cool.
They've got, each of those has got a couple of hundred members.
Actually, have you thought about the Chrome store, like the web? Because if you can just put it over and it'll probably run with barely any changes in Chrome, and then you can basically sell it as a web app through the Chrome store. You look like you'd be perfect for that.
Yeah, I just ordered the Nexus 7.
They're pretty good on the stick.
Kind of try it out.
Because you can run on anything.
Okay.
Just if you've got Chrome, you can buy.
As a browser game.
Sorry,
as a browser game.
Does that download though? Because I mean, we didn't design.
Optionally, you can build it as you can do it as a pack that will downloads all your HTML and stuff. I think it does it as a zip file also.
Because the thing is that with our game, it's not really a traditional HTML game in that we designed it to be downloaded. It was 100 megabytes. You couldn't play that as a web app. But yeah, that's a good.
No, all of that. So seriously, check out the Chrome store because it sounds like you'd be there in a heartbeat. And for what will the work? Even if you sell 10 copies, it'll probably make it worth your trouble, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, at the moment we're focusing on, we want to get the ARM version figured out because we thought, alright, this performance stuff, we probably need that anyway before we go on Android tablets. Because I think the reason why it's slow is that we use so much GPU memory. Like our sprite sheets are massive, I think we had like 1.5 gigabytes in memory at some stage, and I think we just cut that down. The other thing I want to do localization first, because lots of international players want, of course, their own language when they play.
Can you stagger the release and support other countries later on very easily?
Sorry?
Can you almost re-release the game with more countries?
Yeah. And it's interesting in that if you change, it's really easy to change your settings as well. It's like if I came down in Austria, which is a German-speaking country, so when I go here in the store, okay, that hasn't loaded yet. I'm surprised how shitty the store app is. I would have thought they would optimize that more.
Look, Windows 8 and built-in things are pretty hard for us.
Yeah. So by default, when you install Windows 8, it says make it easier to find apps in my preferred language, and basically what that does, it blocks out all of the apps that are not in your language. So I'm not sure if I need to restart the app, but I found that out that we didn't even show up on the German or Austrian version unless you do that. So yeah, we're not here anymore. Oh no, we're here. Yeah, 6.1. Anyway, our idea is that we want to localize it really quickly because otherwise we might fall out of the top 100, and then to get into that requires marketing, which we don't really have any experience or money for. The prices are all made, so you say one price point and they convert it to all of the currencies automatically. You can't overload it. So yeah, that's the reason why we want to fast track the localization, because we thought, okay, now we have the unique opportunity that we're early in the store, we might as well use that in all the countries that we're in.
How are you going to approach localization? Is it like somebody else that will do most languages in one go, or?
Yeah, I don't know yet. Because I've done localization myself. Like as I mentioned, I'm a native German speaker, so the German version is Novomind, and it's really not easy. It's highly complex. And the thing is, with game dev tycoons, we have so many popular culture references. Like we have this one thing that's Dave Johnson talks to you. It's like from what is it called? Departure Industries or something like that. It's like a take on Portal 2, and the whole voice is kind of this style and writing style, and we just need to find someone who knows all these things and can translate them properly so that it works. So I don't know yet. We will do the German version first because that's easier, and then we go into the rest. And it's a good fit as well because, as I said, simulation games in Germany and Austria are quite good.
We should probably wrap it up now before we get kicked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Patrick and I are going to go for coffee downstairs on the ground floor, so if anyone wants to keep talking, feel free to come along. Thanks a lot, Patrick.
Welcome. It's good to meet you.
Thank you.
Very interesting.